Right, yeah, we decided to do an experiment where, because people ask us lots of questions about the stuff we use and the equipment. So we've done this so we can show you how we do our investigations and the equipment we use and how we communicate with spirit on a non-mediumistic side. So hopefully it's going to go well, but it's just because we get asked lots of questions when we go on cases and from the Joe public. So this is an opportunity for you guys to see us doing what we do, and we'll explain it as we go along, and hopefully we should be good. So.
Sounds stupid, David. Are you from this planet? Don't know why. I just thought.
Delete this device
immediately.
Use your energy to communicate with us.
Enough by birth, and one of the is so yelling at me.
Keep asking us and myself to go somewhere and whatever these things are. The truth is, we don't really know. I'm not going to bullshit you. We haven't got a clue. These things are being said to us. What's saying it to us, I don't know. Why they're saying it to us, we haven't got to the bottom of. But it's happening.
Why? If you're predict where these ships are going.
Are there beings out there that mean to harm us?
Run away.
This video is taken from our Now Investigation 6 live stream and will focus on the first 20 minutes of responses. The footage from the same night you have just seen from our previous video happens about 20 minutes later in the night, after a conversation with Jonathan that we will showcase in a future video. All segments are presented in real time as they are given to us. So, what has UFO sightings in Kent, Italy and Arizona have in common with biblical passages about the coming of the Holy Spirit, a Chinese myth about the creation of humanity, the Ark of the Covenant, a symbolic meeting between church leaders, French cavaliers, the St. Michael's tomb mound, disclosure and an extraterrestrial Council of 12 have in common? We explore the evidence in this recap from our Now Investigation 6 live stream. Hi guys, it's Jared from Paranormal Now, and this video will give you evidence from our live stream broadcast on the Paranormal Now YouTube channel in August of this year. We want to say that we don't have the answers to everything that has come through, but what we are hoping to do is present the evidence in a hope that a link will come, as it appears to be a message for humanity. With that being said, your participation in this project is very much welcome, and any insight you might like to share in the comments below would be very valuable for our research. So please do add your feedback and share this video with those who feel who will benefit, and if you want to see future videos, please subscribe to this channel. So here we go for the Now Investigation 6, The Evidence.
Right, we are calling to the beings that has been communicating while we've been doing these
investigations.
Yeah, investigations. Can you please come through? We need some answers. We need to know who you are.
One close enough.
Being the methodical sort. You said it was for the betterment of Syria. Fabulous.
This as well come through. But
APPEASER. We will never forget them. I welcome back to the Igor, for example.
who are we speaking to?
Are we speaking to anything in relation to the Council of Five?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Who are we speaking to? I think we've earned the right to know.
Who's talking it up?
And if you have been in this place now, and I did take the step back last night, I am now granting you permission to come back in. If you as long as you have good intentions at heart.
There was a minute to talk to Lewis so much. But the is you before. Should have done that actually.
In these videos, we will aim to hold no bias, as the evidence has come through appears not just to be of Christian origin. As you will see in this and future videos, there are texts from other countries, regions and cultures also mentioned. So for the first response to the live stream, and literally you can check this out for yourself, we only just turned the damn thing on, is think of the Bible code. Is this suggesting that the Bible is a code for something rather than historical fact? It then goes on to reference the 7 priests, and those who've seen the previous videos on this channel will know that this has been referenced before, particularly in our video about the Second Coming, especially in reference to the 7 priests and their 7 trumpets. When piecing together the references with those which we will discuss later on in the video, we seem to be led to the book of Joshua. Joshua 6 verses 1 through 27 refers to the destruction of the city of Jericho, where the Israelites invaded the Canaan city. In summary, God commanded Joshua to instruct 7 priests sounding 7 trumpets made from ram's horns to carry the ark of the Lord with armed guard to the front and rear to circle the city for 6 days. On the 7th, to circle the city 7 times. On the final sound of the trumpet, the armies will cry, leading to the walls falling. When the armies invaded, only the prostitute Rahab and her family were spared, and the resources of the city were plundered. The city was burnt to the ground, leaving nothing left alive, and the only survivors being Rahab and her family. So why would God burn a city to save a prostitute and her family? And why was the city promised to Abraham, as apparently referenced 500 years previous in Deuteronomy 6:3? Some have speculated that Rahab is a direct descendant of Jesus Christ. But it is also worth mentioning that the excavations at Tel Es Sultan, which is said to be the historical Jericho, yield little to no historical evidence as to the relevance of this story as historical fact. The piece could also be referring to the 7 angels that sound the 7 trumpets, bringing about the apocalypse. And though this has previously been mentioned, as we will see later, it would be reasonable to assume the story of Jericho is the one what we are being told about in this particular segment. But could both be relevant? If it is a code, then what could the code be for? Could it be of significance to the human condition, for example? Or could this story have actually happened, and there is great historical significance to this lady and why she was spared? What is very interesting, however, is the significance of the number 7 in numerology. The number 7 refers to the seeker of truth, death and rebirth, and the quest to bring spiritual knowledge into the public domain. Those who are born with the soul number 7 generally tend to be those who will sacrifice their own well-being to bring about public understanding of such knowledge, knowing that the information is more important than their own material success.
Are you human?
We're not afraid of the answer.
In French Cavalier, or maybe the other.
So now we seem to have moved on to something different, exploring you once before in person. We can only assume that they are talking about themselves, and in these responses they offer clues as to the actual incident that occurred. In October of 1954, players and spectators of a Florence football match taking place in the stadium Artemo Franchi were stunned by the appearance of a UFO during play, so much so that play actually came to a halt just after half-time. Eyewitnesses to the event said that the object looked like an egg which moved slowly across the sky, releasing what looked like silver glitter down onto the astonished spectators and players below. Other cigar-shaped UFOs were also spotted in the area too. The sticky substance left at the scene, which has also been spotted in other sightings and UFO-related events, is referred to as angel hair and was collected by several witnesses at the scene, some of which delivered it to the Institute of Chemical Analysis at Florence University. Although several chemicals could be identified, the nature of the composition has yet to be explained. Some skeptics believe that the cause is migrating spiders that use webbing as a sail to migrate from one place to another, although these responses would suggest that this is not the case, and this incident could have been of extraterrestrial origin, if the entities we are communicating with are to be believed. The other part of the segment refers to French cavaliers. As technically, a French cavalier did not exist. In the literal sense, cavaliers are a nickname to the King Charles Royalists during the English Civil War, hence the dog breed of the same name, King Charles Cavalier Spaniel. Though the term existed before that time, it loosely refers to a horseman, as the word cavalier is derived from the word chevalier, which is French for knight. At present, we are still undertaking research into what this could possibly mean. However, our research has found something quite interesting. An article published by the Mail Online in March of 2016, referring to French coins made in the 15th and 16th century, that some say prove that UFOs were spotted during this time period. Others believe that the coin simply depicts a shield or Ezekiel's wheel, a reference to a biblical story which in itself could reference ufology in general. The concept of Ezekiel's wheel comes from a vision that is described in the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament, where he describes a vision of God. In the vision, he describes the heavens opening, and through a windstorm he saw an immense cloud and flashing lightning, and immense light surrounding it, the centre of the object being like glowing metal. He also reports seeing 4 beings, which look human, but with 4 faces and 4 wings each. Their legs were straight, and they had feet resembling those of a calf, that gleamed like bronze, and under the wings they had human hands. The faces of each being were of a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, and each of the 4 beings were interconnected. 2 of the 4 wings were spread upwards, connecting with the being stood at each side. The other 2 wings were covering the body. The creatures would move like lightning and exhibited signs of being alive. On the ground beside each creature was a wheel-like object that glowed and moved in line with the creature's face. A wheel intersecting a wheel with eyes on surrounding rims. The objects would move when the creatures moved. As the creatures and the wheels rose up to what looked like a vault of pure crystal, the wings would make the sound of rushing water or the cry of an army. Above the vault was a throne made from lapis lazuli. High above the throne was a figure like that of a man. The man looked like glowing metal from the waist up and fire from the waist down, and was surrounded by a brilliant light like a rainbow. What is interesting about this story is that you look at the human energy field and the concept of the human chakra system, as believed by many Eastern religions and New Age belief systems today. What is being described in the man sat on the throne of lapis is essentially very similar to the chakra system. So could this have been a meditation experience, an encounter with a UFO as some have argued, or even some other experience? Or the response could not have been speaking about the story at all. The French Cavalier could refer to something different, such as the Order of the Knights Templar, which has been suggested in previous sessions. The truth is that we just don't know. What is interesting, however, is the concept that comes through after Ezekiel has his vision, which thematically applies to the previous story of Jericho. The concept here is that if you see a man that is wicked and don't do anything about it, and he and others die from that wickedness, then you were partially responsible. But if you see someone is wicked and did something to stop it, like telling the person the folly of their ways, even if the outcome is ultimately the same, where he and others die from that wickedness, then you would be saved. Now, the Christianity meaning of being saved is not what I'm alluding to here, but think of the concept here for a second. If you know something is wrong and you allow it to happen, you will be responsible in some way, and you will bear the guilt of that responsibility. On a spiritual level, you will essentially enter into a cycle to pay off the karmic debt of such a responsibility. But if you do all you can to stop it, even if you fail, then your conscience is clear. Spiritual seekers and thinkers today will say that our thoughts create our reality, and there is even scientific basis for this, as our thoughts create our reality through our behaviour and our neural pathways in our brain. What could be being said here is to trust our subconscious, our spirit, which knows more about what's going on around us than we will ever know consciously. Did you know that anything you say, your brain has already thought of 6 seconds before you say it? Think of that for a second.
Thank you. Are you from
Thank you.
Are you from our time?
Question as me.
Strange family. That's all we you don't want from our time?
He did put us right up. The sources don't know.
Thank you for answering our questions, by the way.
Some of the low-holding. What difference is it? Whether business was bad or not, they were. There's just a bit of.
It's been giving us the messages.
Right, if you don't want to do it live,
Please.
but we do need
National assistance. Wow. Right?
What do you want us to do?
The sideboard I'm not heading yet. Should these people have a great cut?
What?
Well, sure.
UFO researcher Linda Milton Howe has presented evidence in numerous talks and forums about communication with several witnesses that believe they have communicated with an alien council of 5, one of which is the testimony of a Sergeant CJ, an active army officer who upon seeing a UFO has a vivid encounter with grey alien beings that channeled information to him using binary code. In these experiences, the beings warn of a danger to planet Earth. They speak to him of being worried about humanity's future and what humanity is doing to itself and the darker direction in which it's going. These warnings we have also had in our live streams. The technology of benefit to humanity is being kept from us by our governments, and that humanity needs to awaken its consciousness in order to overcome the problems that we are facing us right now. Howe had Sergeant CJ's binary code translated, and it suggests that these entities have been continuously protecting planet Earth, and that citizens' advancement technologically is essential for our survival, and gives coordinates that point to Nuremberg in Germany, a place pivotal to the Second World War, and a scene of its own UFO encounter back in 1561, where large black cylindrical objects, along with other flying objects, were spotted, some of them again releasing smaller objects not dissimilar to those reported in the 1954 sighting in Florence. These were more synonymous with a conflict, as symbolized by the German artist Hans Glaser. The code also bears some resemblance, according to Howe, to the code released by Sergeant Pedeston after the Rendlesham forest encounter. There is a correlation linking the continuing protection of planet Earth and agents of Orion. I will now play you a segment from our last video where we ask if there are aliens on Earth that mean to harm us.
Are there beings out there that mean to harm us?
Oh, run away.
In my personal opinion, the smoking gun of Howe's evidence comes from a crop circle in Winchester that appeared near the BBC Winchester Tower in 2002. The circle showed a grey alien behind what resembles a disc depicting binary code. The code reads, "Beware of the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain but still time. Believe, spelt incorrectly, there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing." Now those who saw our Mandela Effect video, along with our video about the hidden hand, will know that we have received similar messages. In 1999, British alternative researcher David Icke produced smoking gun evidence in his book The Biggest Secret, which he predicted several outcomes which have since come to pass. Icke also famously proclaims in this book that beings of a reptilian origin rule over planet Earth in secret, and certain individuals are placed into power due to their bloodlines. Could this warning of beings from Orion be what Ike is talking about. A report from kentnews.co.uk from February 2016 highlighted the latest UFO sighting in Folkestone area of Kent that happened the Sunday prior to publication. The website quotes the Kent UFO Research Group as saying that the county shorelines leading to the English Channel are a hotspot for UFO activity in the area. The photo that you are seeing now is taken from Emastis Grixas, who snapped 2 floating orbs when taking pictures of a nearby cherry picker outside his home in 2012. Ashford, Tenterton and others have sightings over the years, and reports according to the website are on the increase. The next part of the responses is unsettling. It says, ask your assistance for war. Are these beings at war? And if so, do they need humanity's help? In her book Keepers of the Garden, the author, therapist and researcher of lost knowledge, Dolores Cannon, describes contact with extraterrestrial beings that have protected Earth for generations, and say that it was originally meant to be a paradise, but was corrupted through disease and outside forces, through her technique known as the quantum healing hypnosis technique. The quantum healing hypnosis technique, or QHHT as it is called, is a technique similar to regression hypnosis. However, Cannon's technique would put her patient into a superconscious state rather than a subconscious state, where they would not be immediately aware of what was happening around them. After going through the healing, the patient would often say there is someone who wishes to talk to you, and would channel information of which Dolores would note. She would find that dozens and dozens of people would come from all over the world and give information in this state that would directly correlate to previous sessions. Though they had no contact with one another, she would then use the information to write her books. Her books, including The Convoluted Universe, various volumes, The 3 Waves of Volunteers, and many more, describe contact with ETs, Nostradamus, spiritual beings, describing Christ and the Christ consciousness, and more. Information which is mind-bending and challenges the rational mind, but also agree with David Icke and others that essentially we are a conquered race, being manipulated gradually to our own destruction, meaning in our interpretation we are going through a war of the spirit. The good and the bad of our nature. Is this the war the ETs are talking about? Give us some dates on a previous stream. Are those dates still relevant, please?
To Michael too. And you know, enrichment date.
I won't repeat them.
Which I've encountered in the series.
Do you...
The deposit of 15 bucks. Goodbye, Jeanette. Secured.
Acts 2 is a chapter in the Bible that refers to the coming of the Holy Spirit. When the day of the Pentecost had fully come, they were all with one accord in one place, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing of a mighty wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. Then there appeared to them divided tongues, as of fire, and one sat upon each of them, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak in other tongues, as the Spirit had given them utterance. The chapter goes on to talk about the resurrection of Christ and the beginnings of Christianity, a prophecy of the Apostle Peter and the spreading of an ideal. But to me, when you read between the lines, what is being described here is an awakening. And it shall come to pass that in the last days, says God, that I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your young men shall see visions, your old men shall dream dreams, and my manservants and on my maidservants I will pour out my Spirit in these days. Since the 1970s and 80s, the concept of psychic phenomena has become more and more apparent in the mainstream consciousness. More and more people are experiencing paranormal phenomena. Some would say that the veil is thinning. More now than ever, people are sharing these strange experiences. The responses say that we have been here before. Could this passage point to a time in humanity's history where we were awakening, where our consciousness was to a point where we were asking more questions and becoming more acquainted with the multidimensional facets of our nature? If the human race died out tomorrow, then the only thing left after 800 years would be the Hoover Dam. Our cities, technology, everything would be overcome by nature. The term shaman, for example, points to the idea of a sick man that has healed himself, and there are many that believe that the concept of resurrection does not point to the death of the body, but more the transformation of the soul, a breakdown of everything you feel is real, where you are made to face yourself amidst everything around you, the phantom or fake self, so you see yourself for who you really are, you see your own brilliance. God and his apostles were just people. They couldn't find him there. The Father, he looks at you. Remember the question that we asked earlier. Why would God burn a city to save a prostitute? Even the Bible gives stories of people in certain positions who, when finding their own potential, can make changes that are remembered for good or for ill for generations to come. What if, no matter who you are important, and that everything you do means something for greater good or the greater ill? What if, in exploring ourselves, that we overcome the obstacles that face our planet, and has done so for the last several thousand years? Einstein said that you couldn't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it, and if you ask a fish to climb a tree, it would be doomed to failure until it understood the concept of a tree and how you would climb one. What if the help that is needed is to overcome the obstacles that face us in our own lives, and through that we face the issues of the world together? War, tyranny, famine, disease. Wars cannot be fought unless soldiers fire their weapons. Famines cannot spread if enough people give their food which is left to waste. It starts with us. No malevolent force, whether human or alien, behind world agendas such as globalization, corporatization, continuous warfare and depopulation can stand against a humanity that realizes that we are all connected, and to hurt another is to hurt oneself. If we become acquainted with the spiritual part of our nature, realize that what we seek without, we can and always do find within. What if we can find the God within ourselves, that spark, the link to whatever created us? What if the aim is to help us find our own Holy Spirit? If this is a war, there is not a war of weapons, but a war of words, of knowledge, of understanding, of realization that a human being is powerful, but together we are unstoppable, capable of immense love. By connecting with our spirit, we enter our own enrichment day, and as more and more do this, as more and more awaken, ask questions, realize that politicians and corporations lie, deceive and obfuscate, and find their own answers to who they are, the ones in the dark will lose. What if the message that is coming through these live streams could be summed up to one word? awaken. Sorry guys, we are just we're actually looking up to see if we can find any Acts 2, Michael 2. If anyone on you guys on the chat can do that, let us know and we will
Can you have a look for our steps? Sure will.
Yeah. What do you want us to do?
Speak to my Eurotrain.
Something very strange happened in one of the responses, and to me personally, when I was going back through the evidence, I came to the response where it said find there, and the next bit is obscured. I had the overwhelming urge to reverse the audio of the clip, and to my surprise, this clip gave an intelligent response in both forwards and reverse motion. When you reverse the audio, it says, "Halt the sinners." So what are they asking us to find? Well, the closest word I can find is ark. But this is open to some debate. At the present moment, if this assumption is true, then the full response will read, "Find the ark, halt the sinners." What do you guys think? The Ark of the Covenant was a chest which housed the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments. It was made from acacia wood and gold, originally housed in the tabernacle in the desert, then eventually moved to the temple in Jerusalem. The significance of the ark itself was the lid, which was known as the mercy seat. The term mercy seat comes from the Hebrew word meaning cleanse, cancel, appease or make atonement for. Once every year, a high priest would sprinkle the blood of a sacrificed animal onto the lid, as appeasement for the sins of many cast throughout the year. In the New Testament, the ark becomes less relevant, because it was to Jesus that followers would look for their atonement. So why would these responses be focused on this object? What is its significance? Is there a real world significance to the Ark of the Covenant now? Or is this, as suggested, a code, another way of looking at events past? Is there something more tangible we are being offered? Are we actually being given a date? Acts 2 talks about the coming of the Holy Spirit, but we know that during the rise of Christianity, other cultures were absorbed into the tradition, and the coming of the Pentecost, for example, coincides with the festival of Beltane. Earlier, when talking about the 7 priests that will bring the one, it could have referred to the 7 angels who, upon sounding their trumpets, bring the end times. Now, I don't believe for a second that these times signal the end of man, but they do signify a transition of consciousness. This is what many believe the Mayan calendar that sparked the 2012 phenomena was based upon. A changing of energies based on the movement of the Earth around the Sun and the solar system around the galaxy. Many also believe that the eclipse that hit America on August 21st, 2017 was a sign of transition, followed by the alignment of September 23rd, where Virgo, Leo, the Sun, Moon, Mercury and Venus aligned to give what some believe was the sign in the heavens as foretold in Revelations of the virgin birth. As Jupiter moves through the alignment, it follows the birthing route of the Virgin or Virgo. Whilst in retrograde, This retrograde will take 9 months and therefore will finish on May of next year. May also happens to be the month where the Festival of Beltane takes place. Mount St. Michael is an island granite outcrop which was known as Mount Tomb under the first monastic settlement in 708 AD, built following the appearance of St. Michael to the Bishop of Avanches. The main church at Mount St. Michael is orientated at 26 degrees north of true east, the same as Notre Dame. This orientation can be extended in both directions to form an alignment with Mount Dol in the southwest and Avranches to the northeast. Mount Dol is the place where St. Michael is said to have fought Lucifer. According to the legend, one night in 708, St. Orbit saw the Archangel Michael, leader of the armies of heaven, in a dream, who commanded him to build a church on top of the island. There is also a golden statue of St. Michael, which can be seen at the top of the church spire. Building the monastery was an immense project, evolved over many centuries. The construction of the abbey took more than 500 years, from 1017 to 1521 AD. The original church structure was completed in 1144 AD. Other buildings were added in the 13th century to accommodate monks and pilgrims who come to St. Michael to pray and find solitude. On the 8th of May, the spring festival of St. Michael, the sun rises over the Avranches towards Mount St. Michael and Dol de Brutan. Could this be a significant date?
Do you want to help us?
Well then, he fish down below near. Now there's something that in a place like his, Bartholomew.
Maybe
Good news for Columbus. Or willing, look at him. People that take it very unkind. I don't know where. Not a girl at the center field. I won't fix it.
In May of 2014, Pope Francis met with Economical Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew I. This was the second meeting between these two leaders of Christianity since the 15th century, the other being in 1964. So why is this significant? On the 1st of September 2017, after the broadcast of this live stream, the two issued a joint statement of prayer to mark the World Day of Creation, to ask all followers and those of goodwill to reflect prayerfully on how to live in a simple manner, offering thanks to the noble Creator for the gift of creation, and pledge commitment and care for the sake of the future generations. The message also asks for those in positions of responsibility over cultural, political and other interests to hear the cry of the earth and attend to the needs of the marginalized, and above all respect the needs of the millions to heal our wounded creation. The Orthodox Church has celebrated the day since 1989, and Pope Francis declared the Catholics also honour this day in 2015. In January of 2016, the Vatican released a video proclaiming all religions are divided in belief and united in love. And as moving and emotive as this video actually is, there are some that believe that this is a prelude to the one world religion. The famous speech given by George Bush Sr. back in 1991, where he proclaimed the world is moving towards a new world order, have sparked conspiracy theories for the past 30 years, many of which are coming to light now.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The project for the new American century, which gives the script for the continuing and perpetual warfare in the Middle East, leading to provocation of Russia and China into a global conflict, for example, which very nearly come to pass in November of 2016. The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership and Trans-Pacific Partnerships that were proposed in 2015. The list goes on, and far too much to explore in this current video, but one of these is the advent of a one world religion. Religion throughout history has been the method of control, closely linked with the state, and though on the surface all religions working together sounds amazing, are the responses pointing to an ulterior motive, or is this a genuine move to unify people? That being said, true spirituality is never found in religion. It is found in one's own journey through life. Yes, there are truths in religious texts, but they can mean different things to different people, and this is what should be respected above all else: our right to choose, to follow a religion or our own path, or even both. This, to many, is what a spiritual awakening is all about: finding one's own truth and not the truth you have been led to believe, opening one's mind and reimagining the possible. So what about Anu? Who is he? The responses speak of him as if he is a living being, and not something from the past. Anu, to some, is the God of the Bible, not the creative source of which we are all part. But in order to understand Anu, you have to look at ancient Sumerians. Anu is the earliest recorded sky god, lord of spirits, demons, and the kingdom of heaven, and said to have the power of judgment, and said to have created the stars themselves as soldiers to destroy the wicked. Taking their evidence from the ancient world wonders, such as the Pyramid of Giza, the Nazca Lines in Peru, amongst others, there are those that believe that ancient aliens had influence on planet Earth. Some of the species would mate with humans and influence our development. Could this be what the responses are alluding to? We will be asking more about Anu in a future live stream.
Yeah, answer before we ask them, like,
Yeah.
almost. Yeah.
And then once they got it up the system, they tend to be more responsive then.
Germany, Arizona side.
Realised.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't. Or how, you know,
Just as nervous as we are.
I would have thought so.
What is your world like?
Right now,
Phoenix, Arizona, 1997, home to one of the most memorable sightings in UFO history, spotted by thousands in the area, along with other sightings in Sonora, Mexico. The Phoenix lights baffled onlookers between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. on the 13th of March. Lights of different descriptions were reported by literally thousands of people in a 300-mile radius. Is this evidence of extraterrestrial activity? Some of the sightings have been explained by flares used in a training exercise by a nearby Air Force base, but others remain skeptical that what they saw was not of this earth, including a triangle formation of lights passing over the state, along with what is described as a huge V-shaped craft, several football fields in length, moving across the night sky, blocking out the stars as it passed, yet made no sound. The governor at the time ridiculed the idea that the incident was extraterrestrial in origin, but years after leaving office, Fife Symington described the events as otherworldly. Arizona has remained a major hotspot for UFO activity since 1997, with well over 100 sightings reported across the state in 2017 alone. According to the US National UFO Reporting Center State Report, which quotes the last log sighting as being on the 1st of October 2017, where a white object was spotted in the northeast sky near Tucson. Right now, on my ship, when going through these responses, something crossed my mind. Were the beings telling us where they were? On the 18th of August 2017, one of the most intriguing sightings captured on video in Arizona took place. The sighting was of 5 craft in a W formation. Is this what the live streams are referring to? Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
We're on the ship.
Is your ship in orbit?
We are
See some of the conversation. In Chinese legend, the character of FUXI, or FUXI as romanized, is a cultural hero credited for the creation of humanity and also credited with bringing about hunting, fishing, cooking and the kanji system of writing Chinese characters. Around 2000 BC, FUXI was counted as one of the 3 sovereigns at the beginning of the Chinese dynastic period. He has also been credited with showing the ancient Chinese people how to domesticate animals. In Chinese legend, the creator god is known as Pangu, a giant sleeping in an egg of chaos, whose awakening caused the separation of the earth and land. and then died through standing up out of the egg, thus creating the mountains, rivers, plants and animals, and everything else in the world, including a powerful being known as Hasu, who in turn gave birth to twins, a brother and a sister known as FUXI and Nua, respectively. Twins with the faces of humans and bodies of a snake. And though FUXI technically is credited as the first human, this is not the case, but was said to be born in the reaches of the Yellow River, possibly in modern Lantian Shaanxi province, or Tianshu Ganshu province. Their offspring is said to be made from clay and brought to life through their power. I mentioned earlier about the Sumerian creation myths and how many now believe that those legends hold some truth. The responses say that the Council of 12 were known wide and far and were referred to as FUXI in China. In her book Keepers of the Garden, Dolores Cannon recounts conversations with very similar beings that said they were seed planters, and they did indeed work with ancient man. Other researchers have come about the same thing. One thing is interesting, however, is the reoccurrence of the snake or serpent in several creation myths. Could these be an ancient symbolic reference to the agents of Orion?
When I started seeing that apparition in my doorway, this was lasting for a good 5 minutes. I was looking away. If I didn't know any better, at the time I'd have said it was a tall grey. Bearing in mind at this point I'm not a believer in these sort of phenomena. It's not something that I find I don't want to be a part of, I suppose, at this point anyway.
But that's the area where it was.
It's everywhere. Right. Ready?
Yeah. Look at your finger.
So cut forward to Tuesday.
Jesus.
So, Sam then saw a second one. The second one came around the bottom of the bed and walked up to her and leant over her. She put her hand out, Sam being Sam, me still being a bit terrified. She put her hand out and touched this being, whatever it was. And she got quite curious, and it got quite curious of her. I just had this feeling that she'd seen it before. I was going back for her or something.
UFO sightings in Italy, France, the UK and USA. Biblical passages, Chinese creation myths. This is something we were certainly not expecting to get when we started doing these live streams back in May of 2017. But we are here now and still have many questions. This video is just around 20 minutes of responses, and we have well over 20 hours of content to go through. One thing is for sure, something is communicating with us. There are just too many personal references and things that check out for it to be coincidence, at least in our opinion. But the evidence does not stop there. The final piece that we would like to show you today comes from a paranormal investigation we did in a South Wales pub back in late August of this year, where with no internet signal, using the apps that only have limited capability, we had contact again. And the picture that you see on screen now was taken You can clearly see on the right hand side the two beings that have appeared. One looks like an alien grey, the other looks exactly like the figure I saw in my doorway back in 2013. We all feel that these messages cannot only be for us, but have a significance for humanity. But what do you think? Are these responses pointing to something? A lost knowledge of our own existence in the universe? A lost history hidden in code behind our cultural belief systems? And if so, what does that mean for us? Are we embarking on an exciting yet dangerous time of awakening where many of the old systems are breaking down? Is this a form of disclosure? Who knows? But as I said at the beginning of this video, we value your opinion, insight and contributions to this project in the comments below. And if you find this video interesting, then please feel free to share it with your friends and family. Is this evidence of the paranormal? It is up to you now to decide. There is plenty more to come, so stay tuned to the channel for more evidence coming very soon. I am Jared Walters for Paranormal Now, and thank you for watching.